Whee!
Well, that's quite a face.
It's not a whale, Dad. That was a turtle. All right.
Turtles don't make any noise, do they?
Girl turtles?
Maybe if you listen closely enough, you could. Did they actually emit sound? That I've never heard of what a turtle voice looks like.
What does a turtle say?
Yes, what does a turtle say?
I don't know.
Okay, very good. Um, Perception and choice. To the extent, I'm going to have to move these guys out of the way. Excuse me for, okay. To the extent to which you value guilt, oh, I just love guilt. To that extent, will you perceive a world in which attack is justified? To the extent to which you recognize that guilt is meaningless, to that extent, you will perceive attack cannot be justified. This relationship between guilt and attack is in accord with perception's fundamental law. Perception's fundamental law is, which is, you see what you believe is there, and you believe it there because you want it there. Perception has no other law than this. That's pretty hard to swallow, but it's a good pill to swallow. A perception has no other law than this. The rest but stems from this fundamental law of perception to hold what you believe up and offer what you believe up to your mind that then supports it. This is perception's form adapted to this egoic world of God's more basic law that love creates itself and nothing but itself.
God's law of creation, God's laws of creation state that love gives everything because it is everything. Nothing is held back. Creation is extension, and the only distinction between creator and his child is that the creator's thought was the first cause. The creator's child has all the powers of the father, but is not self-created. The child's source energy continuously flows from the mind of God. Perception comes from the belief in separation. That's the shadow. Perception utilizes projection to make its world. With perception, we prejudge what we want to see and then we project it outside of our mind. Our physical senses then confirm that what we wanted to see is outside of our mind. Our belief comes first, and it is cause of what we choose to perceive. What we physically perceive is the effect of this outward self projection from our mind's imagination. We believe what we value, and we value what we want and desire. Projection makes our perception.
God's laws do not obtain directly to a world perception rules, for such a world could not have been created by the mind of God, to which perception has no meaning. Yet are God's laws reflected everywhere, even in the world of perception? Not that the world of perception, where this reflection of God's law is real at all. This world of perception is the ego's attempt to make false illusions appear to replace the truth. Only because God's split-minded Son believes the world of perception is, and from this split-minded Son's belief, God could not let God himself be separate entirely from his Son. Belief. God could not enter his Son's insanity with him. Thank God. But God could be sure that God's sanity went there with the Son, so the split-minded Son could not be lost forever in the madness of his egoic wish of separation. God's sanity is represented by the Holy Spirit.
Although God's laws do not rule the world of perception, they are kept in the Christ consciousness part of the split minded. The Christ is the home of the Holy Spirit, who is the voice of God and the return of the sonship to knowledge. When the thought of separation was first perceived, God assigned to the Holy Spirit the function of returning the sonship to right mindedness. The Holy Spirit is the call for the Son's return to sanity. He represents the laws of God in this world of illusion by reinterpreting specialness and egoic special relationships and transforming them into unifying holy experiences. This transformation is achieved by forgiveness, which joins two apparently separate minds into one mind that shares the same purpose. God's sanity is represented by the Holy Spirit and was placed within the mind of the split minded at the time of the separation to ensure the Son's return to knowledge.
I want to jump in here with an outside thought, but it's really right about this. It just came to me a moment ago. If our overall vision and understanding of the truth is that all is one, then that means that if you have a cause and effect representing the numeral 2, that they really are two parts, two faces of the same coin, or the opposite face of the
So,
same.
like, cause is one, effect is two. Then you've got a coin with two sides, which is really one single coin, but we look at it as two different sides.
And that's why he says that as soon as a cause, meaning the idea of one of us guys, decide to separate from the main ship here, at the same instant in time, the solution was resolved. And if we remember that the whole idea of this whole deal is to remember that we are one, then instantly we're already on the way back to becoming one again with God. And that's important because sometimes we think something terrible happens in our life, we'll never get out of this mess. But the reality is, and our life reality is, that any time and every time, because time is relative, something goes wrong, the solution already is created instantly at the same moment.
It's much more helpful and easier to find the solution that you know exists than one you can't even imagine could possibly exist. Even if you don't know what the solution is, having the expectation that the solution is there right around the corner, ready to be discovered, you just have to pick that flower in a field of flowers. That's
Exactly.
takes a lot of the pressure off.
It does.
And it's so hard in the little reality where you're caught in that fog to see and know that there's a chance to do that. But I think you'll find in this next sentence.
You went silently.
Yeah, that was the end.
Oh, okay.
This next paragraph, this next sentence is going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay. I you had a chance, you had a chance to see what that was saying while I was trying to put that idea together. Perception rests on choosing. Knowledge does not rest on choice. Oh, perception rests on choosing. Knowledge does not rest on choice. Knowledge has but one law because knowledge has but one creator. But this world of perception has two creators who made this world of perception. And these two creators that made this world of perception do not see this world as the same world. To each creator who made this world of perception, this world has a different purpose. And to each who made it, this world, is a perfect means to serve the goal for which this world is perceived. Wow. For egoic specialness, this world of perception is the perfect frame to set specialness off, the perfect battleground to wage specialness's illusionary wars, the perfect shelter for illusions which specialness would make real. Not one illusion can be made real, but specialness upholds it in its perception, the illusion's reality. Not one illusion but can be fully justified nor made real.
The egoic part of the split-minded made the world of perception into a place to prove that the separation was real. The ego does this by trying to convince us that our happiness lies in specialness and that specialness can be a substitute for God's love, and that the false can be made into the truth. It seems so silly. If any illusion could be made true by the ego, this would be proof that there is another will that's different from God's will. The ego's world of perception is based on specialness. Its purpose is to establish the laws of chaos as the replacement of truth. These laws of chaos are diametrically opposed to God's laws. The Holy Spirit supports the laws of God in the world of perception.
There is another maker of the world, the simultaneous corrector of the mad belief that anything can be established and maintained without some link that kept the world of perception still within the laws of God, not as the law itself upholds the universe as God created it, but in some form adapted to the need the Son of God believes he has, while the split-minded perceive they are separate from their source, God the Father. This is the Holy Spirit. I didn't read that very well. It was a hard one because it was so long. There is another maker of the world, the simultaneous corrector of the mad belief that anything could be established and maintained without some link that kept the world of perception still within the laws of God, not as the law itself upholds the universe as God created it, but in some form adapted to the need of the Son of God, to the need the Son of God believes he has, and that's the Holy Spirit. It's the Holy Spirit that keeps it together.
While he is split-minded, they're separate from the source.
Thank you.
This is the world of perception's idea that we're just here alone and there's no God. That's what it's saying.
And that's why,
Corrected error is the error's end, and thus God protected his son even in error. In other words, the little boy who pretends he's a dog isn't actually a dog. He's just pretending he's a dog. No matter how hard he pretends, he's still just pretending he's a dog, and he's still a little boy with all the potential to become a great man like we all do. God holds that final perspective of the result, not the temporary audacity of a little boy pretending he's a dog, actually becoming a little furry dog chewing on a bone, no matter how hard he tries.
good job. Well done.
Thank you. The Holy Spirit will take whatever experience we request under his guidance. Thank you so much, little boy, for thinking that you're a little dog. I'm just going to continue to see you as a little boy. He will reinterpret the experience to more accurately reflect the truth that our minds are joined. True forgiveness is the healing balm that cures split-mindedness.
Mhm.
True forgiveness is the
Mhm.
thing that actually cures us. Forgiveness and love bring the minds that appear to be separate back to their common state of joining as one. Forgiveness is our path out of the jail we have put ourselves in. This reinterpretation is not the total truth, since it's still based in time, space, and change, but correct perception is below knowledge. Yet, this correction within the dream itself moves us closer to the reality of the eternal oneness with the mind of God, which is the kingdom, or heaven.
There is another purpose in the world that error made, because the world that error made has another maker, the Holy Spirit, who can reconcile its goal with his creator's purpose. In the Holy Spirit's perception of the world, nothing is seen but justifies forgiveness and the sight of perfect sinlessness. Nothing arises in the world that error made, but is met by the Holy Spirit with instant and complete forgiveness. Nothing remains an instant to obscure the sinlessness that shines unchanged beyond the pitiful attempts of specialness to put sinlessness out of mind where it must be and light the body up instead of the sinless mind. The lamps of heaven are not for the egoic mind to choose to see the lamps where the mind wills the lamps to be. Let me try that again. It's a new concept. The lamps of heaven are not for the egoic mind to choose to see the lamps where the mind wills the lamps to be. If the egoic mind elects to see heaven's lamps elsewhere from their home, as if the egoic mind lit a place where heaven's lamps could never be, then must the second maker of the world, the Holy Spirit, correct your egoic error, lest you remain in darkness where the lamps are not.
The Holy Spirit will correct any errors in perception that arise out of our mistaken belief that the separation is real. The Holy Spirit knows God's Son is whole and sinless, and corrects any perception that would bear false witness to this truth. That's why the little boy doesn't sprout a tail and fur. And that, my friends, is really the truth.
You know someone like that? Okay.